Imagine the unimaginable young boy, declared dead not once but three. Separate times miraculously returns to life. When he opens his eyes, he doesn't just bring back a second chance, he brings back a message so profound, so startling, it could only come from a place beyond our earthly existence, a place we all wonder about, a place we hope exists, but seldom hear direct accounts of. This is the story of Landon Whitley, a boy who ventured to the edge of life and death, crossed into the unknown, and returned with an urgent warning. He claims he met Jesus, and what Jesus told him is something you need to hear if you've ever questioned the existence of an afterlife or wondered what happens or we close our eyes for the last time. This story might hold the answers you've been searching for. Buckle up, because you're about to embark on a journey that defies logic, shatters doubt, and takes you straight into the heart of a divine mystery. Before we dive in, if you want to hear more incredible stories like this that make us question our understanding of life, don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next. It all began on an ordinary Sunday in 1997. The Whitley family, like many families, cherished their time together. On weekends, they had a simple, wholesome routine: a trip to church in the morning, followed by a drive home where they would enjoy lunch and spend the rest of the day relaxing. On this particular Sunday, it seemed like any other. Julie Whitley, a devoted mother, was chatting with her husband Andy as they navigated familiar roads in the back seat. Their young son Landon sat looking out the window blissfully, unaware of the twist of fate that lay just minutes ahead. The sun shone brightly through the car windows, casting a golden light on what was supposed to be a peaceful journey home. As they made their way through the quiet streets, July couldn't have imagined that these would be some of the final moments she'd share with her husband. The tranquility of the day, the comfort of routine, and the safety of being together as a family were about to be violently shattered without warning. Everything changed in an instant. The calm was pierced by the blaring sirens of an ambulance speeding through an intersection. The Whitley had no time to react. In a flash, their car was struck with such force that it was sent spinning out of control. The sound of metal crunching glass shattering and the force of the impact left Julie disoriented. Everything happened so fast, like a nightmare unfolding in broad daylight. When the car finally came to a stop, silence fell over the scene, broken only by the distant wail of the ambulance sirens, now hauntingly close. When first responders arrived, it was clear that the situation was the wreckage was severe. The car was almost unrecognizable, crushed under the force of the collision. Inside, Andy Whitley had already succumbed to his injuries, his life taken in an instant. Julie was trapped, but miraculously she was still alive, though badly injured, as the rescuers worked frantically to extract her from the twisted metal. All thoughts turned to the small, limp body of Landon in the back seat. He wasn't breathing. Landon's condition was critical. He was rushed to the nearest hospital as paramedics fought to keep him alive. His pulse was faint, his breathing shallow, signs that his body was slipping away. Despite their best efforts, the unthinkable happened. Landon was declared clinically dead. The medical team tried everything, pushing the limit of their expertise, but there was no response. It seemed like his time on earth had ended before it had barely begun. Julie, still grappling with her own injuries, was informed of her husband's death. The devastating news hit her like a physical blow, but even in her grief, she couldn't fully process the loss. Her mind kept drifting back to Landon. She come to the hope that somehow her little boy would survive, even as the doctors told her to prepare for the worst. In the operating room, the battle for Landon's life continued. Twice more he flatlined, twice more the doctors declared him dead, and twice more they managed to bring him back, but just barely. Each time his heart stopped, it seemed like the door to the afterlife opened a little wider. He was teetering on the edge of two worlds, as if he were being pulled back and forth by unseen forces. The medical staff worked tirelessly, their faces a mixture of focus and quiet despair. They were doing everything they could, but the situation looked hopeless. It was as though they were watching a soul slip away despite all their efforts to anchor it to the earth. Julie, overwhelmed with fear and grief, prayed fervently. Her prayers were not just words, they were desperate, guttural cries pleading with God to spare her son's life. In those moments, she could feel her faith being tested like never before. She had already lost her husband. Was she about to lose her only child? Too, she whispered to herself, please God, don't take him from me, not him. Too, for the doctors, it was a matter of time. The likelihood of Landon surviving was slim, and if he did survive, they feared he would suffer severe brain damage. How could anyone endure being declared dead 3 times without catastrophic consequences? They prepared July for what seemed inevitable. If Landon did wake up, he might not be the same boy she once knew. He might be trapped in a shell of his former self, his memories erased, his personality forever altered. Yet, despite the grim predictions, Julie refused to give up in her heart. She believed that her son's spirit was stronger than his frail body. She held on to the sliver of hope that he would return to her, not as a broken version of himself, but as the boy she had always loved. The hours turned into days, and the days into weeks. Landon lay in a coma, unresponsive, connected to machines that kept his body functioning. July kept vigil at his bedside, her hand holding his as if her touch alone could pull him back from the abyss. The medical team remained cautious, monitoring his condition closely, but their faces told a story of doubt. They had seen too many cases like this, and the outcome was rarely good. But Landon's story was not like any other. Landon lay in a deep coma, the rhythmic beeps of the machine surrounding him, filling the room with a sterile mechanical heartbeat. To the doctors, he appeared unconscious, but Landon's spirit was far from dormant. As his body remained lifeless, tethered to tubes and monitors, his consciousness drifted into a realm few have ever experienced and lived to tell. Landon later described it as though he had been lifted from his physical body, leaving behind the sterile hospital bed for a place that words can scarcely describe. He found himself standing in a field of light, a place so serene and otherworldly that it felt like a dream, but with a vividness unlike anything he had ever known. It was as if every sense was amplified. The colors were more vibrant, the sounds were more harmonious, and the feeling of peace was overwhelming. Land would later struggle to put the experience into words, but he was certain about one thing: he had crossed over into heaven. He remembered seeing roads paved with gold, shining so brightly that they seemed to glow from within. The air was filled with an ethereal glow, not from a sun, but from the place itself. It was as though the very fabric of the environment was made of light and love. And then he saw them, figures bathed in soft golden light. They were not strangers. These were people he felt a deep connection with. Even though he couldn't immediately recognize all of their faces, he realized he was surrounded by family members who had passed away long before he was born. It was a shocking revelation, but it felt completely natural in that moment, as if he had always known them. Among them were two small children who greeted him with warm smiles. Landon was puzzled. He couldn't place them, but their presence felt comforting and familiar. It wasn't until much later that he would discover the truth. These were his siblings, lost to miscarriages before he had been born. It was something his parents had never discussed with him, something he had no way of knowing. Yet here they were, greeting him with open arms and pure, unfiltered love. Then he saw a figure unlike any of the others, a figure that seemed to radiate light from within, more brilliant than anything he had seen before. Landon knew immediately who it was, even though he had never seen him in